The world as we know it is undergoing seismic shifts. Nations that once dominated the global stage are facing unprecedented challenges, while emerging powers are beginning to flex their muscles. Economic landscapes are transforming at a breakneck pace, and the very foundations of the global order are being questioned. How do we make sense of this chaos? The answer lies in understanding the timeless principles that have governed the rise and fall of empires throughout history. Principles that Ray Dalio has meticulously laid out, and which we must now revisit and apply to our current context. Let's start by revisiting the concept of historical cycles. History, as Dalio points out, moves in cycles, periods of growth, stability, and decline. These cycles are driven by a combination of factors, including debt accumulation, technological innovation, political stability, and military power. While the details may vary, the overall pattern remains consistent. Empires rise when they manage these factors effectively and fall when they fail to do so. In today's world, we are witnessing a critical phase in the cycle. The United States, long considered the dominant global power, is facing significant internal and external challenges. Its national debt has ballooned to levels not seen since World War II, political polarization is at an all-time high, and its military, while still powerful, is being stretched thin across multiple global engagements. Meanwhile, China is rising rapidly, driven by massive investments in technology, infrastructure, and education, and a clear vision of its role on the global stage. But what makes this cycle different from those in the past? The answer lies in the pace and scale of technological change. The digital revolution is not just another phase of industrial progress. It is a transformative force that is reshaping every aspect of human life. From artificial intelligence and quantum computing to biotechnology and renewable energy, the technological innovations of today are creating new forms of power and influence. Nations that can harness these technologies will gain significant advantages, while those that lag behind risk being left in the dust. Consider the rise of artificial intelligence. AI is not just a tool. It is a force multiplier that can enhance everything from economic productivity to military capability. China, for example, has made AI a central component of its national strategy, investing heavily in research and development and integrating AI into every aspect of its economy and military. The United States, while still a leader in AI research, faces challenges in translating its technological prowess into sustained global leadership, particularly as domestic issues like education and infrastructure fall behind. This brings us to one of Dalio's key principles: the role of debt in the rise and fall of empires. Historically, excessive debt has been one of the primary drivers of decline. Nations accumulate debt to finance wars, expand infrastructure, or stimulate economic growth, but over time, the burden of debt becomes unsustainable. Interest payments consume a larger and larger share of national income, limiting the government's ability to invest in future growth. Eventually, the debt becomes so large that it triggers a financial crisis, leading to a sharp decline in economic power. Today, global debt levels are at record highs, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Governments around the world have borrowed heavily to support their economies, resulting in massive fiscal deficits. The United States, in particular, faces a daunting debt burden, with public debt exceeding 100% of GDP. The question now is how these nations will manage this debt in the coming years. Will they be able to grow their way out of debt, or will they be forced to adopt austerity measures that could stifle economic recovery and lead to social unrest? Debt management is closely linked to political stability. As Dalio points out, the decline of empires is often marked by increasing internal conflict and social unrest. When people lose faith in their government's ability to manage the economy, they become more polarized, and this polarization can lead to civil strife. In the United States, we are seeing this play out in real time. Political divisions have deepened to the point where even basic governance is becoming difficult. Meanwhile, in Europe, populist movements are challenging the traditional political order, while in China, the government is tightening its grip on power to maintain stability. This erosion of political stability is not just a domestic issue, it has global implications. As the world becomes more interconnected, the internal dynamics of one nation can have far-reaching effects on others. For example, the political instability in the United States has raised concerns about its ability to lead on global issues like climate change, trade, and international security. Similarly, China's increasingly authoritarian approach is raising questions about the future of global governance and the potential for conflict between the world's two largest powers. Understanding these dynamics is crucial to navigating the changing world order. As Dalio emphasizes, power is not just about military might or economic size. It's also about the ability to influence global norms and shape the international system. For much of the 20th century, the United States used its power to build a global order based on liberal democratic values, free markets, and multilateral institutions. But as its influence wanes and other powers rise, the future of this order is increasingly uncertain. In this context, one of the most important principles for dealing with the changing world order is adaptability. The nations, businesses, and individuals who thrive in this environment will be those who can adapt to new realities quickly and effectively. This means being open to new ideas, willing to take risks, and ready to pivot when necessary. For nations, this might mean rethinking their approach to global governance, investing in new technologies, or forging new alliances. For businesses, it means staying ahead of technological trends, diversifying supply chains, and being prepared to operate in an increasingly fragmented global market. And for individuals, it means continuously learning, building new skills, and being ready to seize opportunities as they arise. But adaptability alone is not enough. As Dalio points out, the most successful nations and organizations are those that balance adaptability with a strong sense of purpose and direction. They have a clear vision of what they want to achieve and are willing to make the necessary sacrifices to get there. In today's world, this means thinking long-term, investing in the future, and being willing to make difficult decisions in the short term to ensure long-term success. One area where this is particularly important is in the management of technological change. As we've already discussed, the digital revolution is transforming the global landscape, creating new opportunities and challenges. Nations that can harness the power of technology will be well positioned to lead in the coming decades. But doing so requires not just investment in technology, but also in the human capital needed to develop and deploy these technologies effectively. This means investing in education, training, and research, as well as creating the conditions for innovation to thrive. China, for example, has made significant investments in education and technology, with the goal of becoming a global leader in AI, biotechnology, and other advanced fields. The United States, while still a leader in many areas of technology, faces challenges in maintaining its competitive edge, particularly as its education system struggles to keep pace with the demands of the 21st century. The question is whether established powers like the US can make the necessary investments to maintain their leadership, or whether emerging powers like China will surpass them in the coming years. Another critical area is the management of global risks. As Dalio points out, the rise and fall of empires are often influenced by external shocks, events like wars, pandemics, or financial crises that disrupt the status quo and create opportunities for new powers to emerge. In today's world, we face a range of global risks, from climate change and cyberattacks to geopolitical conflicts and pandemics. Managing these risks effectively will be crucial to maintaining stability and avoiding the kind of catastrophic events that can lead to the decline of empires. Climate change, in particular, is a growing threat that has the potential to disrupt the global order in profound ways. The impacts of climate change, rising sea levels, more frequent and severe natural disasters, and shifts in agricultural productivity are already being felt around the world. These changes are likely to exacerbate existing inequalities, create new conflicts over resources, and strain the capacity of governments to respond. As Dalio emphasizes, the nations that will succeed in the future are those that can adapt to these changes and find ways to mitigate their impacts. One way to do this is through the development of a green economy, an economy that prioritizes sustainability and reduces its reliance on fossil fuels. Many countries are already making this transition, investing in renewable energy, electric vehicles, and other green technologies. But the shift to a green economy is not without challenges. It requires significant investment, technological innovation, and international cooperation. And it also means making difficult choices about which industries to support and which to phase out. The transition to a green economy also raises important questions about social justice. As Dalio points out, inequality is one of the key drivers of social unrest and political instability. If the benefits of the green economy are not shared equitably, there is a risk that it could exacerbate existing inequalities and create new sources of conflict. Ensuring that the transition to a green economy is inclusive and fair will be crucial to maintaining social cohesion and preventing the kind of internal conflicts that have led to the decline of empires in the past. Another critical area is the management of global governance. As we've discussed, the current global order is under strain, with rising tensions between major powers and growing challenges to the multilateral institutions that have underpinned the international system since World War II. In this context, the role of global governance is more important than ever. Effective global governance is essential for managing the complex interdependencies of the modern world, addressing transnational challenges like climate change and pandemics, and preventing conflicts between nations. However, as Dalio points out, the current global governance system is far from perfect. It is often slow to respond to crises, lacks enforcement mechanisms, and is dominated by a few powerful nations. Reforming global governance to make it more inclusive, responsive, and effective will be crucial to maintaining stability in the changing world order. This may involve strengthening existing institutions like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization, as well as creating new institutions to address emerging challenges. In conclusion, navigating the changing world order requires a deep understanding of the principles that have governed the rise and fall of empires throughout history. These principles, as laid out by Ray Dalio, provide a framework for understanding the dynamics of power, debt, political stability, and technological change. But they also demand that we stay adaptable, think long-term, and be willing to make difficult decisions in the face of uncertainty. This journey is far from over. If you found this exploration valuable, there's much more to learn. In the next video, we'll dive even deeper into the specific strategies you can use to apply these principles in your own life, whether it's improving your financial situation, making better investment decisions, or simply understanding the world around you. Don't miss this opportunity to continue your journey. Click here to explore the next steps and discover how you can master the changing world order and turn challenges into opportunities. The future is uncertain, but with the right knowledge and strategies, you can navigate it successfully. As we delve deeper into the principles for dealing with the changing world order, one key aspect we must explore is the concept of economic cycles and how they interplay with the shifting global landscape. Ray Dalio emphasizes the importance of understanding both short-term and long-term debt cycles, which are pivotal in the rise and fall of economies. Short-term debt cycles. Short-term debt cycles, also known as business cycles, typically span 5 to 10 years and are characterized by periods of economic expansion followed by contraction. These cycles are driven by the availability of credit. When credit is easy to obtain, businesses and consumers borrow more, leading to economic growth. However, as debt levels rise, the economy becomes more fragile. Eventually, the need to repay debts causes spending to slow down, leading to an economic downturn. Historically, these cycles have been managed through monetary policy, particularly by adjusting interest rates. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the United States, lower interest rates to encourage borrowing during recessions and raise them to cool off the economy during booms. However, in the current global context, with interest rates already near historic lows, central banks have fewer tools at their disposal to manage these cycles. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated this challenge, as governments and central banks around the world resorted to unprecedented measures, including massive fiscal stimulus packages and quantitative easing, to prevent a global depression. While these measures provided temporary relief, they also contributed to an even greater accumulation of debt, setting the stage for future economic instability. Long-term debt cycles. Long-term debt cycles, on the other hand, span several decades and are influenced by the cumulative effects of short-term cycles. Over time, as debt levels grow, the ability of a country to service its debt becomes increasingly strained. This often leads to a deleveraging process, where debt is reduced through a combination of austerity measures, inflation, and in some cases, default or restructuring. Dalio highlights that the current global situation bears striking similarities to previous periods of deleveraging, such as the Great Depression of the 1930s and the post-World War II era. During these times, economies had to undergo painful adjustments, including debt write-offs, currency devaluations, and significant shifts in economic policy. The key takeaway is that understanding where we are in the long-term debt cycle is crucial for anticipating future economic trends and potential crises. The role of reserve currencies. Another critical element in the changing world order is the role of reserve currencies. For decades, the US dollar has been the world's primary reserve currency, giving the United States significant economic and geopolitical advantages. However, this status is not guaranteed. As history has shown, the dominance of a reserve currency can decline as a nation's economic power wanes. The dollar's dominance is being challenged by several factors, including the rise of the Chinese yuan, the increasing use of digital currencies, and the growing skepticism about the sustainability of US fiscal and monetary policies. China, in particular, has been actively promoting the internationalization of the yuan, seeking to reduce its reliance on the dollar and establish itself as a major global financial player. Additionally, the advent of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, could further disrupt the current global financial system, creating new opportunities and challenges for both established and emerging powers. Geopolitical implications. The shift in economic power from west to east has profound geopolitical implications. As China continues to grow in economic and military strength, it is challenging the existing US-led global order. This rivalry is evident in various arenas, including trade, technology, and military strategy. The United States, for its part, is grappling with how to respond to China's rise while dealing with its own internal challenges. This geopolitical competition is not just a bilateral issue between the US and China. It affects the entire world. Smaller nations are often caught in the middle, forced to navigate a complex web of alliances and economic dependencies. For example, countries in Southeast Asia, which have strong economic ties with both China and the US, must balance these relationships carefully to avoid being drawn into the broader conflict. Moreover, the increasing rivalry between these two superpowers is leading to the fragmentation of global institutions that have maintained relative peace and stability since World War II. Organizations like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and the International Monetary Fund are facing unprecedented challenges as they struggle to adapt to the new power dynamics. This raises critical questions about the future of global governance and whether a new, more multipolar world order will emerge. Technological innovation and economic power. As previously discussed, technological innovation is a key driver of economic and military power in the modern world. The competition between the US and China is, in many ways, a race to dominate the technologies of the future. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology, and clean energy are just a few of the fields where the stakes are incredibly high. The nation that leads in these technologies will not only gain significant economic advantages but will also be able to set the standards and rules that govern their use. This could have far-reaching implications for global trade, security, and even human rights. For instance, the development of AI-driven surveillance technologies raises ethical concerns about privacy and individual freedoms, especially in authoritarian regimes. Social cohesion and national strength. Another important principle highlighted by Dalio is the role of social cohesion in maintaining national strength. Historically, empires have declined when internal divisions, corruption, and inequality weaken the social fabric. In today's world, many countries are experiencing growing social tensions, driven by economic inequality, political polarization, and cultural conflicts. In the United States, for example, the growing divide between the wealthy and the poor, along with increasing racial and political tensions, poses a significant risk to the country's long-term stability. In Europe, the rise of populist movements and anti-immigrant sentiment is challenging the traditional political order and threatening the cohesion of the European Union. China, too, faces internal challenges, including ethnic tensions in regions like Xinjiang and Tibet, as well as growing discontent among the middle class over issues like corruption and environmental degradation. How these internal conflicts are managed will play a crucial role in determining whether these nations can maintain their power and influence in the coming decades. The importance of education and human capital. One of the most critical factors in a nation's long-term success is its investment in education and human capital. As Dalio points out, the nations that lead in education, research, and innovation are the ones that drive economic growth and technological progress. In the 20th century, the United States became the world's leading power in part because of its world-class universities, research institutions, and a culture that encouraged creativity and entrepreneurship. However, the U.S. education system is now facing significant challenges, including underfunding, declining performance in key areas like math and science, and a growing gap between affluent and disadvantaged students. If these issues are not addressed, the U.S. risks falling behind in the global race for talent and innovation. China, on the other hand, has made significant strides in improving its education system, particularly in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics (STEM) fields. The Chinese government has also been aggressively recruiting top talent from around the world and investing heavily in research and development. These efforts are beginning to pay off, as China closes the gap with the U.S. in critical areas like AI, quantum computing, and biotechnology. The role of global institutions in the New World Order. As the world transitions to a new global order, the role of international institutions will be crucial in managing the complexities of this transition. The United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and World Trade Organization were all established in the aftermath of World War II to promote global stability, economic development, and international cooperation. However, these institutions are increasingly seen as outdated and ineffective in addressing the challenges of the 21st century. The rise of emerging powers like China and India, along with growing skepticism about multilateralism in countries like the U.S., has led to calls for reforming these institutions or creating new ones that better reflect the current balance of power. For example, the G20, which includes both established and emerging powers, has become an increasingly important forum for global economic governance. Similarly, regional organizations like the European Union, the African Union, and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, are playing a more prominent role in shaping global policies. However, the effectiveness of these institutions will depend on their ability to adapt to the new realities of the global order. This may involve rethinking their governance structures, broadening their mandates to address issues like climate change and digital governance, and finding ways to include a wider range of voices in decision-making processes. The future of global trade and economic integration. One of the key questions facing the New World Order is the future of global trade and economic integration. For much of the 20th century, the world saw a steady increase in global trade, driven by the reduction of tariffs, the expansion of free trade agreements, and the growth of multinational corporations. This period of globalization led to unprecedented economic growth and lifted millions of people out of poverty. However, in recent years, there has been a backlash against globalization, driven by concerns about job losses, income inequality, and the erosion of national sovereignty. The rise of protectionism, exemplified by trade wars between the U.S. and China, has raised questions about the future of the global trading system. At the same time, the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed vulnerabilities in global supply chains, leading many countries to reconsider their reliance on foreign suppliers and to seek greater self-sufficiency. The future of global trade will likely be shaped by a combination of these forces. While there may be a retreat from some aspects of globalization, particularly in areas like manufacturing, there will also be new opportunities for trade and investment in emerging industries like digital services, clean energy, and biotechnology. The challenge for policymakers will be to find a balance between protecting national interests and maintaining the benefits of global economic integration. The impact of demographics on the global order. Another critical factor in the changing world order is demographics. The aging populations of many developed countries, particularly in Europe and Japan, pose significant challenges to economic growth, labor markets, and social welfare systems. In contrast, many emerging economies, particularly in Africa and South Asia, have young and growing populations that could drive economic growth in the coming decades. However, these demographic trends also present challenges. For aging societies, the challenge is to maintain economic vitality and social cohesion in the face of a shrinking workforce and rising healthcare and pension costs. For younger, rapidly growing populations, the challenge is to create enough jobs and opportunities to absorb the growing labor force and to ensure that economic growth is inclusive and sustainable. These demographic shifts will have profound implications for the global economy and the balance of power. Countries with aging populations may find it increasingly difficult to maintain their economic and military strength, while countries with young, dynamic populations may have the opportunity to rise as new global powers. However, realizing this potential will require significant investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, as well as sound economic policies that promote inclusive growth. Conclusion and future outlook. As we come to the end of this extensive exploration of the principles for dealing with the changing world order, it is clear that the world is at a critical juncture. The established global order, dominated by the United States and its Western allies, is being challenged by the rise of new powers, particularly China. At the same time, the world is facing unprecedented challenges, from climate change and technological disruption to rising inequality and political polarization. Navigating this new world order will require a deep understanding of the underlying principles that have shaped the rise and fall of empires throughout history. These principles, as laid out by Ray Dalio, provide a framework for understanding the dynamics of power, debt, political stability, technological change, and social cohesion. But they also demand that we remain adaptable, think long-term, and be willing to make difficult decisions in the face of uncertainty. This journey is just beginning. If you found this exploration valuable, there is much more to learn and understand about how these principles apply to the world today and to your own life. In the next video, we will dive even deeper into the specific strategies you can use to apply these insights to thrive in this rapidly changing world. Click here to continue your journey. The future is coming fast. Don't get left behind. Let's explore what's next together.